Anthony's here by phone only. He's having some technical difficulties. So we're going to get started, and I'm looking at today's agenda. So with new business, update on meeting with MMA form of government representatives. So Sean McGinnis, Anthony, and I met with Jeff Nutting on Monday, and Jeff is going to join us on our November 30th meeting, just to talk to us. And from that meeting, he will propose a course of action. One possibility is he could have a group of people meet with us to talk about our task that he's worked with. So similar to the webinar that some of you may have watched, some of those members, but he wants to kind of tailor a group that has, representative town meeting, town administrators such as we do, a similar group. And that would be people who are either retired from those positions or currently in those positions, who have worked on charter reviews. So after our meeting with him on November 30th, we'll have and he'll tell us at the meeting after he, meets all of us and listens to what we're going, how we're doing, what he would suggest. But he's very willing and interested in meeting with us and working with us. He also has looked over our charter and the work that we're doing. And I also sent him those recorded meetings that we had, that Melanie had forwarded us, just so that he could see sort of our group dynamics. So it was a good conversation.
You should get a medal for watching that, Heidi.
So Sean or Anthony, did you have anything more to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add, Jeff was really knowledgeable. I think, he kind of asked where the committee was at. We filled them in on some of the minor and larger issues we're having. And it was reassuring. He was very familiar. He's like, I've been through that before. Yes, this has come up. And he was very willing to kind of share his experiences and, path forward on some of the things and not presenting like, not directing the group. I think he was pretty clear on that, but more just kind of presenting, a lot of factors and variables that he's dealt with so the board can consider that. So he was really great, I thought. And he'll be very helpful, I think, to provide some insight.
And that meeting is at 1:00, Heidi, on the 30th?
11. I have 11.
I thought that was when Mary couldn't attend at 11. So I had a 1. That's why I'm trying to confirm. I don't want to.
No, thank you. Mary, I see you're offline right now and you were in your car. So when you have the ability.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, yeah. I actually am not, I can still meet then. I start full time in December. So I can still do the November 30th at 11.
Okay. What day in December do you start, Mary?
It's let me see, December 10th, the week of the 10th, I think. Let me just go look at my calendar. Sorry, I'm just coming in.
That's okay. The 10th is a Saturday.
Yeah, so it's the 11th through the 17th, and then they're all. I mean, it's just to get back in, and then starting in January and full time. So I'm just full time that 1 week just to kind of transition.
All right. Well, our meeting after the November is December 7th. So at that meeting, we'll talk about after the holidays. That's our last meeting before the holidays. And then we'll talk about our time structure for January. So if everybody else on the call would start thinking about that.
So on the 7th, I have noontime as a meeting. Is it noon or is it 11?
I'd like 11, but everybody on screen, if you'd weigh in.
I'm fine with that.
I had 11.
That's fine.
Okay.
11 for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we were reviewing sections 3 and 4, hopefully today. Also on our agenda, we have Collins Institute proposal review. So we're going to hold off on that until we meet with Jeff Nutting on the 30th. So why don't we go right to just approving the minutes from October 26th, so that's out of the way.
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. All right. Brian,
Aye.
Terry,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Heidi says yes. So those are all set now. All right, so now we can get to work. Let me get this off my screen.
So Anthony got disconnected. He's calling back in.
Okay.
And I'm going to switch off onto my computer now. So I'm going to get off of here and then come back in that way.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
So we are starting today with 3-1H. So if you could pull up your document. And I just got to make it bigger. All right. So we were talking about this one at our last meeting and we stopped here. And this was regarding the multi-member board.
Yeah, just Heidi for Anthony, just to update him. Anthony, we're on 3-1H.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just sitting there and I thought maybe I offended someone. I didn't even say anything, but the call just went away.
So I think that should multi-member bodies be able to fill their own vacancies? So I think here is that a multi-member body, if it's a group this is a group, remember we're under the topic of the elected bodies. So someone is elected to their group and then they can't fulfill that office. So we would typically not schedule a special election to fill the void of a multi-member group. So here it says that the multi-member group shall fill such vacancy by a joint vote with the select board. If notice of the vacancy is not provided to the select board within 30 days following the date on which said vacancy occurs, then the select board again, after 1 week's notice, shall fill a vacancy without participation by the remaining members of the multi-member board.
What does that mean?
Well, this looks like the select board can appoint someone to fill that void on that board without their input.
After 30 days.
After 30 days. I don't know. And Sean McDonald, you would know if that has ever happened. No, I would think that a board that knows a member is unable to continue participation for one reason or another would go through the channel of making sure they have a full group.
The board that's most important is the planning board, because as an adjudicatory authority on, or quasi-judicial authority on applications for special permits and stuff, they need a supermajority sometimes. So because we're a 5-member board, we need 4 yeses. So if you only have 4 members, it makes it harder for an applicant to get approval if there's any dissenting vote.
After going through that process, Heidi, I don't
I don't have a problem with the way this is laid out. The definition of notice, I wouldn't even know how to clean that up if you wanted to put a letter from the particular board to the select board, explaining the vacancy, something like that. But in my case, planning board was made the select board aware of the vacancy. There was a joint meeting, and then a choice was made between both boards. And I don't have a problem with the 30-day issue either, because like Anthony said, those things have to be handled, you know, in a time frame that works for the town. So if they don't receive notice, then 30 days I think would be fine for them to move on their own, and the select board to move on their own.
I'm going to defer to the historian, Sean McDonald. Is there anything in this section that you feel complicates a task or that we need to streamline?
Let me just.
One thing that's not clear to me is, so say it's a planning board, and the planning board votes 3-2 against the candidate, select board votes 5-0 for. Does a joint vote mean they have to have a majority vote of each board, or just a majority vote of the collective boards?
Good question.
And this,
So that would not be a majority vote of the planning board, but it would be a majority vote of the boards collectively. That's not clear to me. And, you know, usually they try to reach a consensus, and most times they have reached a consensus. But, you know, things happen.
I would think that if you got two boards voting, it's the majority vote of the two boards. Whether it's 4-1 from one or 5-0 from another or whatever. Because that's what, I mean, it's set up. It says here by a joint vote. So the joint vote is the two boards. So it's the majority of the two of the joint vote.
And that's how I would read it as well. If I was asked, I'd say that's my opinion. I wonder if we should, if you're going to go that route, if we should clarify it further. My question was, should a board be appointing its own members?
Well, I mean,
well, this is just to fill the vacancy until the next election.
Yes.
Right, and that's only, I mean, that's only a couple of boards, so.
Well, maybe it'll be less boards.
Right.
If this goes elected boards.
Right.
Can I just ask?
Yep.
What about the school board? Would the select board be able to appoint a member to the school committee? Because this doesn't make any distinction between that, or for that matter, even the finance committee, which is not elected. It's appointed by the moderator, but it doesn't distinguish those two.
No, it says other than the select board of the school committee.
Right. So the question is, how does the school committee and the select board deal with their vacancies? I can tell you in the past, the last vacancy that occurred was John George. That happened in May of June, and the board felt that they could handle the business of the town with 4 people until the next election.
Yeah, I think by a special election.
Yeah, we
wanted to fill it sooner.
I think it was reasonable for
maybe you should specify that in here.
One,
I don't think you want the select
seat.
board appointing school committee members. I don't think you want school committee members appointing select board, obviously.
Right.
And the select board doesn't appoint finance committee, the moderator does.
Correct.
So that would have to be stated someplace. And if there's a vacancy, anybody can write a letter and apply for it. Is that how it works? That's how it worked with the town clerk, yes. Right? Okay.
Well, it would be posted that we're looking for somebody to fill this position, whether it's, whether it's to, if it's an appointed board, it's to fill out that appointment term. If it's an elected, it's till the next election.
And I cannot remember that happening on the school board, but I think that this, when we're talking about those multi-member boards, I think that we should add majority, a reference to the majority of the joint vote in that statement.
Well, then it would just say, should be just a, shall fill a vacancy by a joint majority vote.
My memory may be fuzzy, but wasn't there a school committee member named Clark that left for active military, either resigned or maybe he just didn't run again?
Yeah, that in New Bedford.
I thought he was in Dartmouth for a while. No. Like I said, it's fuzzy. Sorry.
That's all right. He now lives in Dartmouth and he is back on active duty.
And a superintendent when I went to school. George Clark.
Now you're dating yourself.
Yes, I know. He was the superintendent when I went to school. Nice guy from what I was told.
I think, Anthony, are you satisfied with those clarifications?
Yeah, I
the
just
other
want to
thing
make
you
sure
had
that
is,
everybody's okay with the board voting on its own members. Well,
I think they should have a say in who they're going to work with.
Okay.
And currently those boards are elected. I mean, we did talk about making some appointed, but we need to know if they're going to support them as the elected candidate. So if that person were to get on the board and then not play well in the sandbox, they need to know that. So which notice you have? Notice of vacancy or notice of the date of the vote? Presume the former, but it's not clear. And the way I was reading this is the notice of the vacancy is not provided to the select board. So that would be the responsibility of the multi-member board.
The elected boards.
The elected board.
Right, that's the way I read it. I read
Does anyone else?
It's the responsibility of the planning board, the Board of Health, the assessors, if there's a vacancy, to notify the select board.
Right, so what I'll do is I'll just do it as a definition under existence of any such vacancy, paren quotes, notice of vacancy, and then I'll capitalize it. So I'll make it a capitalized term so it's absolutely clear. So I can fix that.
Thank you.
For the next.
We had nothing in 2 or 3, 3-2, which talks about the select board. We're in 3-2B now. And this had to do with, the note says elected town officials, and Anthony was wondering if that included the school committee. So I'll let you go back and read the paragraph to see how you are interpreting this.
Right, and by the reason I did this, by the way, is when they did the definitions of earlier on, I think they might have said excluding school committee and select board. I said it doesn't make sense to exclude them in the definition. You just, wherever you want to exclude the school committee from any of the requirements, you just address it in that particular section. So that's why several times you see popping up, including school committee ? Originally, I believe they were excluded by definition. It's been a while, but I might be wrong.
So I just have a question. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I guess as I read this, I guess that is the question, because, you know, it is saying that in conjunction, the select board in conjunction with other elected officials are developing, you know, policy guidelines, whereas, you know, we do that ourselves for the schools, you know, and it's not necessarily a, you know, about day-to-day administration. It's about setting policy for the schools. You know, that's our role. The day-to-day administration is done by the school, you know, superintendent. So I guess that is kind of my question about why. I can understand why there's a special note for school committee, because it doesn't seem that we're not consulting the select board on the policies that we're putting in place, I guess is what I'm, you know, and it seems to me that when I read this, unless I'm reading it incorrectly, that, you know, this compels the groups to work with the select board on policy making decisions. And again, we don't do that because we're making policies for our own groups.
I agree. That's why I think school committee is very different than any other elected or multi-member body.
So,
yeah,
section 3-3 deals with the school committee. This is just select board, but if you feel it would make it clearer.
Well, because it says, I highlighted the wrong thing. I shouldn't have highlighted town officials. I should have highlighted multi-member bodies.
Board. Okay.
So I should put I would put after multi-member bodies accepting.
Right.
Except the school committee.
Accepting the school committee, yes.
Right.
That to me seems to make sense in this circumstance.
No, thanks.
Anybody
I agree.
Disagree?
What if you keep the school committee, but add the word or add something to the effect of saying, in conjunction with other elected town officials and multiple member bodies shall develop and promulgate policy guidelines that are designed to bring the operation of all town agencies into harmony, provided, however, designed to bring the operation of all town agencies in regards to town governance into harmony. That way you're saying that the select board shall be the leaders, or at least the impetus to get everybody working together for the town.
So, Sean,
staying out of the wheelhouse of running a school committee, running the schools, or out of the Board of Health, out of running that, but making it encompassing into the town as a whole.
So Sean, I'm just trying to understand. So you're saying to continue to not have, so you don't agree with Anthony's wording to add school committee. Because I feel like it's an entirely different, again, just knowing, I mean, we have our policy subcommittee, and again, our policies are for us. I just
don't
feel
want
like
to exclude the school committee. I want the school committee in there, but only in the form of overall town governance. So in other words, because this is like getting the school committee and the town to speak together in the same financial packages, and the procedures on how to, account for each of the budgets, how to report, how to, so that everything is the same, but I understand it's different in the way of policies.
So Sean,
I think that doesn't convey that, though. I'm sorry, hold on, Heidi, I'm sorry, just for a second, though, because I read about it's the formulation and promulgation of policy directives. So to me, that has a different connotation than like standardizing procedures. Policy directives are, we're not just talking about policies in terms of like pursuing budget. We might be talking about policies for student conduct or, people coming onto our grounds. And it just seems that it has a different connotation, just the way it's written. So I don't know. I think that's my takeaway, is that I would be good. I mean, I agree. We want to have those conversations, and we want to have, like, you know, the expectation of, you know, having a concerted effort that we're working together, and that's, you know, kind of an understood procedure. But I just feel like when you say policy, to me, it's not just about these procedures. It's, you know, a different animal.
That's why I want to put in the, you know, somewhere fit in there, you know, town governance.
Okay.
So that it's really kind of putting the peg into where it's supposed to be, because the school committee is, you know, their policies are directed by Mass General Law.
Right.
That's, you know, so I mean, anytime the select board wants to jump in and say, well, you know, the student conduct, no, you got Mass General Law behind the school board.
Right.
The school board is the one that dictates, you stay out of our wheelhouse. But
Right.
As the way the town runs, I think somewhere in there should be regarding town governance.
So Sean, I'm going to suggest that we skip C 3-2C right now and go right down to school committee in section 3-3.
Okay.
It's actually it only has two subsections, composition and powers and duties. And let's see if we can insert something into that section that would convey your thoughts about them working with town bodies.
Right, and again, the reason why school committee exception needs to be added is because they were accepted. They were not part of this because they were removed initially as I believe, as a definition of a multi-member body. And I said, that doesn't make sense because they're a multi-member body. Don't exclude them through the definition, just go to the relevant sections and exclude them there. So by excluding them here, we're not making a change to the charter.
Right.
They're already excluded currently through the definition section, which I changed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So take the school department out of it, though. Say it's another board. When it comes to policy directives, I think I'm getting the drift from Sean. Promulgation of policy directives and guidelines. What if you make the policy directives a separate section, and promulgation of guidelines that are followed by all towns, you know, when it comes to town governance? And when you promulgate guidelines, maybe you exclude the school committee there. I don't know. But I think I get what Sean's trying to say, though, when it comes to policy versus guidelines for town governance.
Could it be a definition of policy as it relates to each of the bodies, school committee and select board?
Well, policies can be, I mean, let's put it this way. If there's going to be a definition of policies, you know, policies have to refer to Mass General Law as it relates to each of the multiple member bodies, because there are health policies, health guidelines from the state that the health board has to follow. Same thing with the school committee. Same thing with the select board. There are certain policies.
The objective in doing this, Sean, is to get some agency in the town to have harmony so that we're all moving in the same direction, no matter whether the school committee or appointed or elected boards.
That's the utopian thought.
Right, but you've also talked in the past about the select board getting calls about things that people think they're responsible for or not responsible for.
Correct.
And so if you were to change it around and somebody had a question about something the school committee was doing and they called you guys, that is the select board, you would direct them under Mass General Law back to the school committee, or you would say that's a good point and we all should be pulling together, and the select board will have a conversation with the school committee to see what their opinion is, and we'll get back to you, or we'll have a meeting about it with the full select board and the school committee.
Right, and it, like I said, it depends upon what, you know, what the issue is, you know.
So if we look at section 3-3 school committee, subsection B, where it talks about powers and duties, I think we can add a sentence in this section that dictates that the school committee will work with other boards and agencies in the town.
I think that's okay, but then you have to.
What do you mean? Yeah,
I was going to say you have to define what work with means.
I agree.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Just, you know, in the last meeting, we spent an hour and a half talking about how you're going to get all this past town meeting. I think if you start putting restrictions or changes to the way the school committee operates, or put mandating, I don't think there's ever been an issue with them cooperating. If you mandate it in the charter change, that could be a 2-hour discussion at town meeting floor.
And I'm going to be, I'll have to bring this. I mean, we've already had a conversation to start on our last section with the school committee, and then kind of a vis-a-vis, I know we visited it last time, and they want to take a look at, you know, again, our relationship. We were looking at that language. Oh, shoot, what is this?
I think it's Anthony. Anthony put us on hold.
It's like the Oscars when they send you off with music.
Yeah.
Idea, putting us on hold.
Yeah, I don't know who that music was. Yeah. What I was trying to say is that you know, any change like that, I mean, in all fairness, because we are representatives of our groups, it would be most effective if I brought it to a meeting with the school committee, got their point of view, because if we're going to, you know, otherwise, you know, like you said, it's going to be a conversation at school meeting. I mean, at town meeting, certainly if the school committee isn't on board, you know. So I think, again, I don't feel comfortable to make a change and be like, yes, without having my colleagues weigh in, I guess, if it's, you know, changing the responsibilities, or, you know.
Perhaps since we seem to have different opinions, Sean McDonald, do you want to take a shot at writing it so it reflects what you think the select board should be doing with relation to multiple member bodies?
Sorry, can you repeat that again? I was
going to say, perhaps since we're going around in circles here, and you're the one with the experience over a long period of time, do you think you could maybe write something that would satisfy what you want and include the school, multiple member bodies?
Generally, if I write something like that, I'll have to run it by Anthony just to make sure.
Of course.
I mean, I think if we task Anthony will come up with something. I mean, he's pretty damn good at what he does. So as far as coming up with something, so I'll be, you know, I mean, if the flavor, I mean, I don't have a problem with what's there now. I just wanted to kind of expound upon it a little bit more. I mean, let's put it this way. I have yet to see any board not cooperate.
At the same token, you're saying that you want to have the select board be the, for lack of a better term, the node that's in charge of making sure everything is harmonious. So if there are disagreements with multiple member bodies, at least the conversation winds up in front of the select board. But right. The multiple member bodies, according to Mass General Law and the rest of the charter, have responsibility as it's defined.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just,
yeah. I mean, Brian, I think the issue is the word policy.
A bunch of long-winded things.
Yeah, I don't want it. Yeah, I don't want it enough to where it's going to confuse the heck out of people. But just something, a simple statement saying, "Hey, look, you know, we are perceived to be the leadership. We want to set policy to make sure that the town is running correctly and that the boards speak to each other. And you know, let's not act like a bunch of knuckleheads and screw this whole thing up.
I think that the problem is in the word policy.
Mhm.
I think if we were able to work around the word policy,
I like the word guidelines.
Yeah, guidelines and you know,
Guidelines, actions, whatever, something like that.
Protocols.
Yeah. I think it should be, I mean, I don't know what, I mean, I know what protocol means, but whatever we're going to use should be very specific.
I mean, the best document that proves that is the financial policies that the select board and the finance committee came up with.
right.
You know, that's probably, I don't want to say it's Dartmouth's Magna Carta, but it's, you know, close.
A good example, because there is a financial policy right now that wasn't approved by the school committee, that was approved by the finance committee. And it's still kind of hanging out there. And it was the policy on, I want to say OPEB, the contributions to retirement goals. That was presented at the school committee a few years ago, and the school committee did not vote to approve it.
So before my time.
So we either need to define policy, or we need to remove policy and institute a different word that doesn't have the same connotations as policy.
Mm-hmm.
Can we leave that up to our lawyer to do that?
Yeah, I think so. It's because, I mean, you almost have to couch it so that nobody gets their, you know, backside up on it.
Yeah. But the intent is to have the select board bring people together for discussions without affecting responsibility the multiple members have under the charter and mass general law.
Correct. Yeah, that's pretty much.
That makes a lot of sense to me, because having somebody to look to at least start the dialogue and resolving problems makes a lot of sense.
So I just want to kind of push back a little bit and just ask, what are the problems, that you would anticipate that the school committee, I mean, and again, just plain that 1 year the school committee decides they don't want to, again, what are those problems? Just as anecdotal, so I can kind of see what, where that would be an issue vis-a-vis this, because again, I see the issue, the policy is a very, that is an issue, so, and I think about things, again, I know we just went through this, logo mascot, issue, which was, so is that, I'm just trying to understand, what would be an example?
That's what I meant. You either have to define policy, find another word, or say something to the effect that it's the responsibility of the select board in terms of harmonious relations in the town, moving towards whatever the town's objectives are, but respecting the responsibilities. And I didn't say school committee, I said multiple member.
Well, no, I understand that, but that would imply, I mean, again, we're saying that,
of course.
It is a month. Yeah.
So
and just let me reiterate that this would constitute a charter change.
So, but what we're talking about
by not excluding the select committee here, school committee here, this is a charter change. If we're going to talk about it for an hour, town meeting is going to talk about it for 3 hours.
And I'm going to say
feels really strongly on this, I would advise that we not make this change.
And all this 3-H is talking about is appointing for a vacancy. We're not talking about policy, anything in this section. It's just about the vacancy. So I think it can remain. We're only talking about the vacancy on the board.
Right.
And school committee. So why on this document it says that school committee would work with the select board, and it hasn't come about. And I hate to say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But right now, I think we can say this is fine. This is just talking about vacancies.
I thought we had already skipped down to when we were looking at the school committee responsibilities, weren't we? So were you back at? we were at section, I thought we had gone down to section 3.3 to kind of resolve this. So now are we back
Well, we
up
did,
to-
because I wasn't sure if we needed to talk about, if we wanted to add something here, which was talking about,
Right.
but we can say that 3-H is all
That's good.
set if we go back
Mhm.
to it and look at it.
So let me just,
Stop talking about vacancies.
I just want to confuse the issue one more time and I'll drop it after this, because I think you're right. We're talking about vacancies. But I mean, if there was currently, Sean, if there was I don't know how to phrase this, a bone of contention between, let's say, budgetary items in the school board and what the select board thinks would be done. Do you currently have the ability to have like a public meeting to discuss whatever the discrepancy might be with the school board? And do we do it?
Yeah.
And it's a good idea if we don't do it.
We do.
There is, but my first and foremost would be to direct and ask Mr. McGinnis to sit down with Mr. Kiley and hash it out, see what comes out of it. Because I mean, stuff, and then if it gets to the point where one group is adamant, then maybe sit down and say, hey, look, what's going on? How can we fix this?
But currently the school committee can tell you it's none of your bit. I don't know if they would do it in these terms, but it's none of your business, and we're going to do what we're going to do.
But
we still have to get our budget passed.
They set the budget, but ultimately the budget has to go before town meeting, and that's where we have our say.
Exactly.
Okay, that's fine.
But we also meet before with finance committee, and even though I'm not on the budget committee, I mean, we meet. It's not as though it's you're going in blind. I mean, there's to your point. I mean, there's a a systemic process before we, like with everything with the budget, before we get to town meeting, and making sure we have the approval of the finance committee, and Jim Kiley does a great job of presenting it. So
but the finance, it's not the finance committee's budget, it's the select board's budget. So we can,
but also the select board's involved in that, I believe. So, but it's the first making sure. I mean, the finance committee is checking our. It's just we are presenting to them and getting their approval. I mean, again, it's the town's budget.
Excuse me, Mary. We don't approve anything.
Well, I know, but you're looking at that. There is a recommendation. It's not approval, but it's a recommendation to the town meeting.
And so, but the total budget is the select board, not the finance committee, and not.
Well, I understand that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So, I don't know if you guys are happy with it, fine. But I that's my question stands. Do you, Sean, have the ability, Sean McDonald, to have people come in and have a discussion in multiple member bodies if they're taking and I'll be quiet after this, if they're taking a direction that the select board doesn't agree with?
Yes, I can answer for Sean. They absolutely do. So the select board is responsible for presenting the budget to town meeting. If the school came before the select board and said we want a 50% increase in the budget, the select board would say no, we're giving you this, and this is what we're presenting to town meeting. And they, that ultimately, I mean, worst case, could they just do that and not communicate with one another? Certainly, but generally, no. You would have multiple joint meetings to discuss that.
I'm just asking to see if everybody's in agreement. And
so my question to you, Sean, is: do we need a charter change for this? I don't think we do. I think we're really down in the weeds.
Okay.
While we're on, what is it, 3.3? That we're I scrolled back up. Sorry. My scroll is not as fast as it was. We're at 3.3 on the school committee. Let me ask this question. And I probably know the answer, but should the school committee members be elected in the same manner as the select board? The reason behind it is this, is that the school committee is responsible for 50% of the town budget. And I just don't, I don't know if it's, oh God, I don't know, how can I say this without sounding like a schmuck? I just don't think it's a fair item that if you have a single person on the school board that a majority of the townspeople do not agree with, that that person cannot be voted out unless they come in third place in a two-person term election. Whereas if you have somebody on the select board who people disagree with, it's that person's term and that person only. And it's just one-on-one or one-on-three or whatever, how many people run for that seat. I just think that when you have
a charter amendment proposal at one point 12 years ago, but it never made it to town meeting. I don't know why.
I think it should be, because I mean, it is a vast majority. It is a committee that basically holds 50% of the town's budget.
The purpose behind setting that policy for the select board in the original charter was to encourage people to run. It sounds strange, but if you had a friend or you had a person that you liked on the select board and you threw your hat in the ring, you could bump that person out inadvertently and not the one that you wanted to bump out. So it had a chilling effect. People wouldn't take out papers for a particular year because one of the two on the select board they wanted to keep and one they wanted gone, and their hat in the ring might kick out the one they wanted to keep. If that makes sense, I'm just trying to rephrase.
Yes. And I think that's the same thing with the school committee now.
Correct. But this is a major charter change that I don't know, again, is it worth going to the mat? I think town meeting has probably got an appetite for it now, just because of the passage of time and the things going on, the national election. But you challenge for the seat. You're not really challenging the person. You challenge for a particular seat. And it may have the intended effect the original charter committee was looking for, to encourage more people to run. That's my 2 cents worth.
I mean, every seat elected in town, with the exception of the library board of trustees and the school committee, it's for the seat. All those two others, it's first and second place.
So what is the verbiage in our document? I'm just looking back to see how the select board talks about how they're voted.
If you look to the original charter, it made the transition from what we have now on the school committee to what we're talking about. And it assigned, I think by lottery, it assigned the select board, existing select board members to a particular seat. And then it called for the election that we have now for the select board in that manner. So we could formulate for the school committee what was done for the select board back then.
Well, I think that was what's waiting. That changed, Steve, because you were going from 3 to 5.
No, maybe that was part of it, but there was also an assignment of seats to existing select board members. So in this case, we would, we would assign the existing school board members to seat numbers and then divide up the election that way.
Well, I to be honest with you, I think that would be fairly simple to do, because at the time of the election, whoever has a 3-year term would be assigned to seats 1 and 2. The 2-year terms would be 3 and 4, and then the 1-year term will be 5.
I see what you're saying. We would have 5 people, and it would be easier to assign the numbers to the school department than it was to assign to the select board back then.
Right, because you went from 3 to 5.
Correct.
Right. So at this point, the school committee has 5 seats, and some years 2 people are running,
Correct.
some years just 1. So what we're proposing is that when they run, they're running for their seat, like seat A, seat B versus popularity contest
Correct.
of A, B, and C. And we would want that added into the school committee's 3-3 composition and term of office. And as I read the highlighted section, it doesn't convey that to me. First past the post, plurality, victory does not.
Yeah, I'm kind of
convey that.
Yeah, that was confusing. I think I understand what they're saying. It's basically whoever that gets the majority. And if there's 1 seat, that majority. If it's 2 seats, that majority. I can see the wisdom if we have someone who gets in there who's, you know, like everybody decides that Mary Waite's toxic and they want to, you know, again, I can see that, you know, and I do think there's the schools are becoming increasingly politicized, unfortunately. So I can see the wisdom of this. You know, I do think you know, to get it, I would like to have a conversation on this, you know, within the school, you know, again, an open meeting school committee, and, you know, because we would need support, you know, again, in getting the charter, this kind of revision, but yeah. I can see the wisdom of this considering what we know is happening nationwide.
Yeah, because see, even if it goes to the library, I also like to do that to the library, because I mean, it's only fair. It's only fair to the electorate to do that, but also part of the library too is to reduce the number from 6 to 5. I could never understand an even number board. It's just.
Right.
But all right, let me close this out. All right, let me just say this. I have to leave. I got to go to Westport to show my staff where to build a dinghy rail. It's one of those things.
Okay, so today what we have agreed upon, according to my notes, is to
oh,
you're leaving right away?
Yeah, I have to leave. My guys just took off, so I gotta hightail it.
All right.
So just keep me, yeah, you know.
We'll see you November 30th at 11.
Okay, I'll have to write that on my calendar because my wife's birthday cake is taking up too much room in the space provided. All right, bye.
Bye. So on 3-1H, the multiple member board, we felt that as is, it was fine. I understand what Anthony was concerned about not being clear, but if it's been clear this long, maybe we let it go and save our fights for other things. If we go down then to 3-2 select board, B, powers and duties in general. And Anthony asked if this also included the school committee, which was in conjunction with other elected town officials and multiple member bodies shall develop and promulgate policy guidelines that are designed to bring the operation of all town agencies into harmony. And do we assume that multiple member bodies?
Heidi, where are you? I apologize.
Oh, sorry, that's okay. I am on 3-2B. Is the school committee considered part of the multiple member bodies that the select board works with?
I thought that Anthony had said that he was going to put accepting the school committee to make that clear because it is a multiple member bodies. And I thought that that's where we landed. Because, and that doesn't constitute a charter change. Whereas if it does include the school committee, it entails a charter change. That was my understanding of how that conversation landed.
Okay. I'm
So
trying
it was
to
just
keep up
clarifying.
in
I
my
think it was just
notes.
clarifying, but you know,
Okay.
for
So
the school
then-
committee, it was a charter change.
And that was 3.
That was B. That was
Select
B.
board 3-2
B. B powers.
B.
Yep.
Okay, yep, I have that now. And then 3-2 C, licensing authority. Anthony thought that this was wasn't necessary.
Can I let me read this to you just so you know
Okay.
why I keep saying accepting school board.
Okay.
The original definition of multi-member body, and this should put this to bed hopefully, is the words multiple member body shall mean any board, committee, commissions, subcommittee, or other body consisting of 2 or more persons, whether elected, appointed, or otherwise constituted, but not including the select board or the school committee. So what I said is that makes no sense. Cross those off. And if you want to accept the select board or the school committee, you don't accept it in the definition, you accept it in the body. So every time I put accepting school committee, I'm not making a change. I'm keeping it the same because I changed the definition.
Right.
Trying to avoid battles on things. My God, if we spend an hour and a half on this, what the hell is town meeting going to do on it?
Okay.
When I put that in there, that's why it's in there. So I hope that clarifies.
Okay. For clarification.
I got that.
So under C, licensing authority, Anthony thought that this was not necessary because it's simply a restatement of statutory power. So if that's the case, I think we can omit it. How does everybody else feel?
That's good.
I agree.
Sounds good.
I hear stunned silence.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree also.
Oh, okay.
Agreed.
So in section 3-3 school committee, Mary is going to talk about this as a possible charter change with school committee as a member of the charter committee charter review committee. So she will report back.
Yes, I was muted. I apologize. Yes, I will do that.
That's okay.
I think it makes a lot of sense, listening, but, and again, to bring everybody the consistency, I do want to just, I think it's important that we get those folks on board, you know, and I want to bring that to them. And I am bringing that other, I think we had talked about earlier from our last session too. I wanted them to look at that. It was our relationship via the select board, in which I think we have to revisit again. So we'll look at those 2 sections together probably in our next meeting, which is in 2 weeks. And then, I'll bring in a hero the 30th.
So Mary, let me know when that is, because I'm still a representative for school committee.
Okay.
To this board, so.
Okay. Okay. All right, sounds good.
Our next section would be Board of Assessors. This is one that we're going to recommend to be appointed, and if so, if that were to pass, then section 3-4 would be eliminated.
I don't know if that would be eliminated. They still have, I don't know. Anthony, hold on. Anthony got distracted.
Okay, but this is under elected.
Their roles and responsibilities they'd still have roles and responsibilities that they'd have to, I don't know, we'd have to put that in the charter, or maybe that's Mass General Law. Anthony can answer that.
Or does it go?
Out. I'm back in. You guys can hear me again? For some reason, it keeps hanging up on me. It's really weird.
We are talking about section 3, under elected, we're still in section 3, but now we're talking about if Board of Assessors became appointed, then section 3-4 would be eliminated. Or is it moved?
No, we would move it to a point.
We would move it to,
Whatever the appointed boards are.
wait a minute, appointed boards, I'm looking.
Under 4, I think. Under 4. We already moved a couple. Yeah, let's see. Direct commission, we moved to under 4.
Yes, it would be under appointments, which is 4 dash, it would be under 4. We have appointment procedures, 4.2, and then 4.3 is budget, town administrator, Department of Public Works. So we would add another section in 4.
So can I, I don't know if this is the appropriate place to ask, because I know we were talking before. So are we considering now, and I'm in favor of this for all the reasons we have, are we basically taking every, like Board of Assessors, Parks and Recreation Board, Planning Board, Board of Health, or all those, are we recommending that all of those become appointed boards? And I think of for some reason, the library trustees, we can do that, but I don't remember why. So is that a recommendation, meaning this whole next section would be then moved?
Well, I don't think you've taken a vote on that. It's just been discussed.
I don't think we've taken a, but it's been a conversation where we seem to be leaning. That was my, does that sound right? Maybe.
Yep.
Okay.
At our last, we talked about keeping select board, school committee, and town moderator for sure to be elected.
Which we had to.
We were questioning whether we go through the clerk again to be appointed, but then we had Board of Health, Board of Assessors, Parks and Rec, Planning Board, and we questioned library trustees.
Library trustees, it was found that half the state are appointed and half are elected. So that roughly, I think it would allow us to do it if we wanted.
Okay.
Say that again, Steve, I missed that.
It's reported that approximately half of the municipalities elect their library trustees and the other half appoint. So it would flow from that it's not a prohibition against.
No, I don't know where that came from. I never said that.
Oh, that was on the state survey of the state Maya, maybe.
Well, I'm going to move that to a Jeff Nutting question.
Okay. Good.
I haven't got to that one yet.
And so the only, it's section 3-7, which is the Board of Trustees. I mean, if we were able to move these to be appointed boards, we do need to look at the language within them, because they all talk about being elected. So we would need to do those language changes. But the only one that has in addition to the elected part is Library Board of Trustees has a section that all funds that the town may receive by gift. So I'm at 3-7B, powers and duties. All funds that the town may receive by gift, by bequest, or otherwise for library purposes shall be administered under the direction of said board in accordance with the terms of such gift, bequest, or other device. And it says, even if given to the CPC for this purpose. And the CPC is?
Community Preservation Committee?
Community Preservation Committee.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So in that, are we talking about the
CPC may have their own restrictions on the administration or use of funds. That was why I put that in there. Okay. I might be overthinking it, but does the CPC ever give money to the library, Sean? Do you know?
I mean, for a project, I mean, potentially they could.
Yeah, yes. Like if they have old documents or something, right?
Yeah, if they're refurbishing, I don't know, something that was covered under CPC, yeah.
Are they listed in the charter, the CPC, just that we could, I don't remember reading about,
No,
I mean,
no,
again.
It's just by statute. No, CPC
Okay.
is not in the charter.
So there's no reason, I mean, again, I was just thinking in terms of like,
I just
you know,
do
backing
a
up.
simple accepting any funds,
Right.
or I can create some exception.
Okay.
Yeah, and I might just be overthinking it, but
Well, you know, it's probably good to have like just always as just in case cover. It's good.
did you guys want to go down and vote on each?
What I was thinking
we
is
should move them to appointed, because we talk about this for 2.5
Right.
years, and
right.
I think we should just
should.
take a vote. Honestly,
I think so too. I agree. So can we take a vote
I'm
without
not on the
Sean
committee.
here?
If I was on the committee, I'd be
Right.
saying right now, I make a motion to change Board of Assessors to elected board, and then
Okay, I'll do that. I make a can we do this without Sean here though? Do we have enough for a vote?
Now we don't.
Okay.
Well, yeah, no,
Yeah.
because we're 5. We would need 3, and now we're 4.
No, you have 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh gosh, wasn't counting myself, I guess.
More important too, Heidi.
And then
I
we
feel
lost
like
Anthony again, so we'll wait for him to come back.
Just taking notes. All right, so Mary, wait, do it.
Okay, I move Board of Assessors to an appointed position.
I second that.
Okay, second. Melanie, you're getting this down? In case I don't, thank you so much. All right, so in agreement, Terry?
I would say yes, but I think that this is a good time for us to start thinking about our rationale so that we can explain to town meeting and not lose the reason for this, because we don't want people thinking it's just to give the select board more power. It's because we have trouble getting people on the committees because people don't want to run for office. That was one of the reasons.
And also the expertise that we want to make sure that people who you know, may want to fill these positions. It's more of an opportunity to get people who have the appropriate expertise and knowledge to serve in these positions. That was my, you know, it's another piece too.
So I guess I'm going to ask Melanie, is that something you can include in the minutes? Because our minutes have been, and I'm assuming you do the minutes. Am I right about that? Because our minutes have been just bullets and conclusions. And I think that this is a piece that we're going to want to come back and put in a document someplace.
Okay.
I say yes.
Thank you.
hello.
So I put
You're
down,
back, Anthony.
okay.
I'm in
so
IT hell here. I don't know what keeps happening. I just get dropped.
So, so I've made 3 bullets for Melanie, but Terry, I want you to make sure you're in agreement. So that we would be looking for candidates with, that are interested in serving,
But don't want to run.
but not run for office.
Right.
We want expertise in the field and a knowledge base of the, I guess, field or service.
Do we have to mention residency as a qualification for appointment, or is that covered somewhere else?
That's somewhere else in the charter. Yeah.
The other thing I can think about as a reason is that so think about the Board of Assessors. Nobody ran this year, right? So there's nobody on it. One person ran for Board of Health. And we don't know why, but it seems like—
No, 2 people ran for Board of Health. 2 people ran for Board of Health.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
It seems like we have a better record of the select board being able to appoint people than people running these positions.
But I can see why some people don't want to stomp on the campaign trail, but want to serve.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. No question. I think we do need to bring it to the each of these boards though, to make sure that, you know, there's somehow that each of these boards, we get their support. Yeah, that's critical.
So the select board is conducting a series of workshops with the various committees. So as this happens within the next few months, it can be a topic that's discussed at that time.
Great.
All right, so we have, so Terry was a yes.
Yes.
Chris O'Neill?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. Steve Mello?
Yes.
Brian O'Hare?
Yes.
And I would vote yes, but we do have a dissension, so I will make sure that that's noted. Melanie? All
And I
right.
voted yes to
Oh,
Heidi.
sorry, yes, Terry, yes. I mean,
So,
Mary.
Mary.
One other point, following up with Terry's concern about being able to rationalize the votes. So we don't have to do it now, but the dissenting vote should have an opinion on why there is a dissenting vote.
Right. So I will
And
ask.
I would be curious about what that is, Chris. Can you say? what you
Yeah,
can-
sure, absolutely. I don't think the vetting process in the past from the select board has been particularly great when it comes to appointments. I'm not sure you gain the expertise. I'm not sure that you gain anything through that vetting process. It's going to be seen, in my opinion, as a power grab. It is what it is. I did bring it to my board and ask their opinion of it, and they were unanimous in dissent. So,
Oh wow, that's good to know. It's a problem.
And do you think adding any language in about what the vetting process should be would be helpful, or do you think that it wouldn't? I guess.
Well, I think
we vetted you.
right, and that was your problem, I guess. Yeah,
they said they put Chris on. They'll put anybody on. Is that what you're saying?
Right, exactly. Yeah, Terry, I don't think it would hurt, but I think ultimately, if these are put together and brought to town meeting, I think they die. I don't think you're going to get the buy-in.
I don't think that's a problem. I think that's what town meeting is for. So if they don't want it, they vote it down. If they want it, change it.
Yeah, I think one thing, if you talk
Brian,
about,
I don't think we should be handcuffed by what we think town meeting is going to do. I think we should do what we think is right. And if we win or lose, we win or lose.
Mm-hmm.
But we're doing our job.
I could see this as a warrant item where the boards are put in, and as the moderator announces each board, there can be a hold put on where people might want to discuss the merits of one board being appointed versus elected and not another board.
And
maybe,
I guess,
yeah, go ahead, Mary.
Oh, no. I guess my question is, when we just to kind of deepen the discussion quickly around vetting, is that again, there's been so much content. Is that really like outlined in the charter where at the appointed piece, like how their folks are vetted and what that process is? I don't remember seeing, for other, for appointed committees.
No, that's beyond the scope of the charter. I think that's beyond the scope of the charter.
Okay, that is okay. Because so that's important to know.
We're talking basically form of government, not how you do every single thing.
And not how, okay. That we can include that. So that.
But I do.
And then one thing to consider here when you talk about the vetting process is, you're working on a charter that is going to be in place for the next 10 years. And if you're basing decisions on, well, the current board that's in place in year one of the charter, we didn't like the way they vetted certain positions or the way they appointed and did their vetting process. Well, you're hamstringing the next 10 years of boards because you didn't like what one particular board was doing. So I think when you make some of these decisions, you should think long-term, what's the best way to manage the town moving forward with other people in place, and who would be on these boards and committees? What would be the best way, looking at participation currently, the anticipation of what the participation would be in the future, which is declining, and what's the better way to manage that? So just some things to think about. You think more long-term than just kind of, hey, this is what happened currently. And
I have a question.
And also, they don't do a lot of appointing for positions like this. So, they did it for the planning board, and it went fairly well. It did, but other positions they haven't. So I think you want to give that opportunity, but something to think about.
So does the select board, under our current scheme, once they make an appointment, and once we change these to appointed boards, if there's a groundswell against an individual, do they currently have the ability to, or will they have the ability under an appointed multiple member body to remove an individual?
There currently is not in the charter a method to remove someone that's appointed other than to not reappoint them. And that's something I think we talked about a while ago, and perhaps adding something like that, but that gets tricky and complicated about, you know, who has the authority and the reasoning.
No, but I mean, I would think that if we're suggesting that the select board has the authority to appoint, then they must, by definition, have the ability to getting rid is not the right word, but to
yeah, I agree. I know what you're saying. There's currently nothing in the charter that gives them that
recall
capacity.
them, Brian. The elected positions, you have a recall. Correct.
Well, I mean, maybe you have to define somehow, as best you can, the vetting process in terms of, the process for disbarring, or whatever the right word would be, somebody on an appointed committee. Because I mean, otherwise, it doesn't seem to make any sense to me if you can appoint, if you can't take away.
But I'm just going to comment that I think Chris O'Neill makes a great point that the select board needs to think about. And should we go forward with an appointment process, that there needs to be a standard set.
Yeah, so maybe you develop a written policy.
Yeah.
Maybe do that sooner rather than later, so that will help persuade anybody. You can say, well, the select board's on top of that because we recently developed, you know, based on comments from planning board, we developed a policy for how we're going to do these appointments, how we're going to advertise, how we're going to take the votes, etc.
And I think, sorry.
These appointed boards, since their scope of responsibility is different, would have to have some sort of definition of who's appropriate. Sorry, who's appropriate to be appointed.
I'll just say, I think it's, you know, it's one of the things as we come, you know, in addition, you know, to Anthony's point about making sure the select board has that to kind of quell those issues, is again, to show the history of, you know, trying to get people to fill these roles. And clearly the assessors has been, you know, an issue. And what are the other boards, and have they been, you know, do we see real contests happening? You know, certainly we did with the planning board this year. But again, in other cases, is that actually happening? I think that's, you know, like you said, the Board of Assessors, and being able to show that pattern in history, you know, and you know, it will actually demonstrate the need. So, and like just to say that participation is actually going down, and running for election is not fun. I mean, that's been my experience. So
are we agreed that if you're going to appoint somebody, you have to have the ability to take them off a committee?
I know that on the finance committee, the moderator can remove somebody if it's not going well, because that question has been asked all the time. So I would imagine that other people would have it, but I don't know where it would be in the charter.
Maybe we could borrow the language if that's the case. I don't know. They should have the ability to take people off an appointed board.
So we'll look at
Put
that.
a procedure in place for removing. You want, kind of like we do for employees, a hearing and a hearing procedure if you want.
Right. Well, I guess then, I mean,
I hear what you're saying, Brian. It does make sense. You can appoint them, but you can't get them off. What if they commit a crime? Should be a procedure.
It's worse than that. What happens if you appoint somebody and they're totally incompetent and they're not doing their job, or for whatever reason? I mean, you want to get rid of them quickly. So
and I also am, you know, always concerned with somebody who goes on with a personal agenda. You know, I'm joining this board so I can benefit some way, which it shouldn't happen, but so I'm going to go down to section 3-5. I'm just going to try to get something accomplished in the next few minutes. Parks and Rec. Did anyone want to move that?
I move that it should be appointed.
I'll second it.
Brian, seconded by Terry. And Chris? I have no problem if you want to count, be a
Chris, was
dissenting
yours for
vote.
every board or just for the assessors?
Yeah, I'm thinking every board on here. So I'm going to say no on that one also. Heidi.
Okay.
Would you,
And my assumption would be it would be for the same, the vetting process.
Yeah.
yeah, Chris, if you're gonna say no on these, would you?
I'm sorry, Brian, I couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
If you're gonna say no on these, would you agree to write the dissent?
Sure.
Great. And then Anthony can do whatever he has to do to make it legalese correct or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Steve Mello.
You're muted,
You're
Steve.
muted.
Sorry about that. I was coughing. I vote yes.
I thought I got hung up on again.
No, I vote yes. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Brian,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Heidi, yes. Terry.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to go down to section 3-6, Board of Health.
I'll move that the Board of Health be made into an appointed board.
I second that.
Second by Brian. Okay. Terry?
I just wondered, Anthony, do you know if there's any legal reason that the Board of Health could not be elected?
They're appointed in other towns.
They are. Okay, then I would vote yes.
Chris O'Neill?
No.
Steve Mello?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Heidi? Yes. All right. Going down to 3-7, Library Board of Trustees.
I make a motion that the library appointees be appointed.
I second.
I'll second that.
Okay. Terry?
Yes.
Chris?
No.
Brian?
Louder, Brian.
Yes.
Okay. Steve Mello?
Yes.
Mary Waite?
Yes.
Heidi? Yes. Town moderator remains an elected position. That's 3-8. Planning board.
Can we back up to the library trustees? Because
Yes, Steve.
Sean McDonald made a great point about the even numbered board.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if this is the right place to address that or if it could be done or should be done somewhere else in the charter. Just why is it?
This is the right place to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it'd be appointed to an even number, whether that reduces.
Yeah, my last draft, I crossed out 6 and put in 5 as a proposed change.
Yeah, we don't need to go up. We can go down 1, but it should be a workable number.
Okay.
Heidi, I'm gonna have to bail pretty soon.
All right. So I'll do planning
up.
board. Did anyone want to move that one?
I will
Mary?
move to have the planning board become an appointed board.
Yeah, on that one.
Second.
Brian would second it.
Planning boards are appointed in other towns. That's legal.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Terry?
Yes.
Chris?
No.
No. Brian?
Yes.
Steve Mello?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes. Sorry, I was muted.
And Heidi? Yes. Town clerk. Now this one is currently elected. We did 2 years ago, I believe it was, that it went forth for a vote for it to be appointed.
It should be appointed. That's yeah.
So we're gonna go.
Let's try again. Yeah, I think so. I'll move to make the town clerk an appointed position.
I second.
If I could spell, I'd be a much faster writer. Terry?
Yes.
Chris?
Nope.
Brian?
Yes.
Steve Mello?
This time I got to vote no, just because it's so
Okay.
close to the will of the voters.
I second the last part, Steve. What'd you say?
I just feel that even after 2 years, and only 2 years of time, it's too close to the will of the voters expressing that it remain elected.
No, forget it, I'll get it.
So
Okay.
Well, okay, I think we have to do
All right, gotta go, bye.
one thing going forward, not anticipate what the town meeting will say.
Right, that's okay. He can
Right.
say no, and I will say yes. So that's a 3,
And yes, and yes.
4 to 2. Mary was a yes. Dartmouth Housing Authority. This is under elected, but I believe we elect only 1 member.
We should probably
And I
revisit
believe
this one,
that is a
Heidi.
have to.
I think this one's controlled by statute, so
I believe so too.
Yeah.
I think we should leave that one alone right now.
Yeah.
I'll look at it again, but I'm not confident that we can do that.
Okay.
So I'm going to say at this point, which it is now 12:40, we have made some progress today. So we will know more in a couple weeks when we meet with Jeff, but at least we've moved on. I'm going to say that we
Heidi,
can. Yes,
Heidi, can I just
Chris.
say that I want to
Yes.
get to the nutting meeting and bring this issue up at that meeting.
Yeah.
To give myself a little bit more of a level of comfort with the appointment versus elected, just so you know.
I think that's a perfect time, and it was something actually that we mentioned that we're grappling with. We did mention that at our meeting. Yes.
And I'm going to have to step away also. You're good with me, right, with the votes?
I believe we're about to adjourn.
All right.
Chris, would you like to propose an adjournment?
Unless anyone opposes, I will make the motion to adjourn.
I second.
We've done a lot today. Seconded by Mary. Okay. Heidi
I'm
says
going to
yes.
call you if you, okay?
Okay.
Yep. Terry says yes.
Yeah.
Terry says yes.
Yeah.
Chris,
Yes.
Steve,
yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.